Okay, everyone, since we want to start promptly and we want to also be very respectful of everyone's time this morning, we're going to get started. Good morning. My name is Adrienne Esposito. I'm the Executive Director of Citizens Campaign for the Environment. I am joined today by our guest speakers with us, and we're delighted to have with us Jessica Otney, who's the Director of Policy and Strategy for the Nature Conservancy. We have Ken Nagel, who's representing the American Waterworks Association. He's also chair of the Water Utility Council for AWWA. And we also have Matt Millay, who's representing the New York Water and Environment Association. Thank you for joining us. We want to just remind folks to please put any of your questions and answers in the chat or in the Q&A. And also anything that you want to put in the chat. We already have some Senator, it's moving. Prasad, please feel free to put who you're representing in there and so we can all see who's here. So the issue today is clean water. And that's an issue that is a bipartisan issue. It's an issue that we believe unites from all different areas of society all throughout New York State. It's also an issue that the Clean Water Coalition has been unified. We're delighted to tell you that our coalition started back in 2015. And for the first time, the environmentalists with those who operate our wastewater treatment plants, NIWER, and those who actually supply the water, AWWA, and also the New York Rural Water Association. And we all sat down together and we have issues that we disagree on, but what we found have about 90% of the issues that we do agree on. And therefore, we come up with a collaborative agenda on how to attain the goal of clean water in New York State. Clean drinking water, proper treatment of our wastewater stream, and the protection of water as a valuable New York State. So we're going to hear today, as we do every year now for the past 5 years, what are the challenges? What do we still need to do? But we want to start out, and we don't get to do this often, but with really a sincere and heartfelt thank you to elected leaders, the Assembly, the Senate, and the governor's staff and the governor on advancing all of the clean water initiatives. Started in 2015 with the Water Infrastructure Act. It advanced to the $2.5 billion for water, another $500 million. It really has made a meaningful change in protecting clean water throughout New York State for the suppliers, for the treatment operators, and more frankly, for the public. So I'm going to turn it over. Well, as far as we have come, we still have more to do. The journey has been good. Made progress, and there are still challenges ahead. And last thing I'm going to say is the issue with clean water is that no matter what challenges we're facing, and yes, we are well aware, particularly all of us who are run nonprofits, of the challenges, COVID has put on all of in operating and running our businesses, in really just moving through this new reality. We get it. But we also know water really can't be put on the back burner. We have to multitask. So I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Jessica Otney, the Nature Conservancy. Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning, Adrienne. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen and start a PowerPoint. Can everyone see that?
I can.
Okay, great. So as Adrienne was talking about the Clean Water Coalition, I just want to thank Adrienne and the other leaders of that coalition for their incredible work to bring together different voices in support of clean water and the clean water funding, in addition to the policy work that they've been doing. I want to share a little bit about another coalition, which the Water Coalition is part of, called New Yorkers for Clean Water and Jobs, which is bringing together 175 and growing organizations in support of all of our environmental funding programs, including the next Bond Act, which will be the Environmental Bond Act. So we're working together this year to make sure that as we recover from the pandemic, we are supporting environmental funding and utilizing environmental programs that protect clean water as a cornerstone of our economic recovery. And as we're thinking about all these programs, as you can see, there's a lot of them, but really the ones that I want to focus on today are the ones that are paramount to protecting clean water and upgrading our water infrastructure in New York State. And why are we doing this? Because it's always something that Nature Conservancy talks about, clean water and the environment, but really, these are invaluable assets to our community. They're huge economic engines. They're important places for people to go to recreate in, especially during a pandemic, but also having nature close to you is important for your health because we need to address climate change and also because we all need clean water to live, right? So this is the work that unified Adrian's coalition and this additional coalition that we're all part of now. So the first funding source that we wanted to talk about, and really start by thanking the legislature and the governor for the strong support in maintaining this fund in the current budget proposal and every year recommitting to it. The Environmental Protection Fund. This was really kind of one of the first big sources of capital funding for environmental and clean water programs in our state budget. It's an annual fund of $300 million a year. And there are really important clean water programs in here. There are programs that help farmers and municipalities reduce runoff pollution. There's funding for the Great Lakes and our ocean, our estuaries, and also water quality improvement, working to upgrade things like septic systems on Long Island and help communities reduce pollution across the state. It also is a great economic engine. For every dollar we're investing in land and water protection through the EPF, we're getting $7 in benefits. So it's really important for our state. And then there's the Clean Water Infrastructure Act. This is Adrian's favorite. We are really excited. I mean, this is a bond act without having done a bond act. It's incredible and it's critical. To date, $5.4 billion has been committed to this program, which is helping upgrade aging and malfunctioning water systems, both drinking water and wastewater across our state. We have some pipes that I think went in the ground when maybe President Lincoln was in office. There was a water main break a few years ago in Troy, and I think this main was so old, they were dating it back to the late 1800s. Some places they're still finding wood. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. In fact, more than $80 billion of work that needs to be done on our water systems. And this funding is absolutely critical. Again, this is another job creator. $1 million state investments results in 17 local jobs. And all of these jobs are really important in our communities, especially now more than ever before. And then there's the Bond Act, which we all were very excited about last year. We understand that it was removed and not put on the ballot in November because of the pandemic. That's totally understandable. But this is still a great opportunity. And moving forward, we want to see this happen because it will create jobs and it will also really amp up this water protection work going on around the state. We just had a study that was completed by AECOM and Rebuild by Design. And they found, and this is really exciting, that the Bond Act will spur more than $6.7 billion in project spending and create 65,000 jobs in New York. That's really, really great. And that's what we need right now as part of our environmental recovery. There's a link down at the bottom there. You can check it out at cleanwaterandjobs.org. There's a lot more information about all of these environmental programs, and you can read this study right on that webpage. So thank you so much for the work that you're all doing to support clean water funding in the state budget. We need it now more than ever, and we're really excited to continue to partner with all of you and with our partners in this coalition. So thank you, Adrian.
So Jessica, are you saying that a water not be associated with an archaeological dig? Is that
that would be good.
That would be good, right? The clay pipes and the wood pipes need to be replaced in modern, kind of materials. Okay.
No more wood pipes.
That's very radical, but makes good sense. Thanks. Okay, next speaker, you're up, Ken. As I said earlier, Ken is representing today AWWA, and the Water Utility Council. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you, Adrian, and I'd like to thank CCE for the invitation today to come and speak to the forum. Today's water systems throughout New York State face many challenges in 2021. Some of the biggest ones include aspects of infrastructure, upgrades and replacements, regulatory compliance with existing, new, and future requirements, and also controlling our rates and what we charge as water suppliers for the water we provide to our customers. Getting into some of these aspects a little bit in detail, infrastructure and upgrades and replacements are going to be a significant item for most public water systems to have to tackle moving forward. Water systems are a complex combination of physical structures and operating in concert to purvey water to customers for drinking, sanitation, commercial, agricultural, and fire protection purposes. These systems include water treatment plants, water main pipelines, water storage facilities, pump stations, and other related appurtenances employed to meet the needs of the water system serving our communities. Each one of these has an operational design life to them and will need to be replaced at some point in the future. The New York State Department of Health estimates that water systems across New York face $40 billion in infrastructure-related costs over the next 20 years. Now, these costs do not include additional measures for compliance with new and pending regulations, nor do they include costs associated with source water protection or soft costs such as engineering, land acquisition, construction management, systems piloting, and design of facilities. Finally, those costs don't include either costs associated with climate change initiatives. From a regulatory compliance standpoint, all public water systems in the state have to comply with the Safe Drinking Water Act, which was adopted in 1974. And also these include the water quality standards set by federal and state drinking water administrators. Water quality standards are created based on sound science through a risk-benefit analysis and employ best available technologies in order to meet the standards that they have been created. Water suppliers provide advocacy and input during the regulatory process, but once the MCLs are established, our role as water suppliers is to comply with the regulations. Implementation of new regulations must balance the added benefit to public health protection with costs. The costs for regulatory compliance are borne by our ratepayers and the consumers of the water supplier. Investing in new treatment takes funds away from upgrading aging infrastructure and may provide for a higher level of public health protection in the long term. In 2020, New York State enacted new regulations associated with emerging contaminants. These included PFOA, PFOS, and 1,4-dioxane. PFOA and PFOS MCLs were established at the 10 parts per trillion level. 1,4-dioxane was established with an MCL of 1 part per billion. These compliance issues associated with these MCLs have significant costs associated to the water suppliers themselves. Just on the Long Island region alone, compliance for these 3 contaminants is estimated to be at approximately $840 million. As measures are taken by water systems to demonstrate compliance, we'll have a full understanding of the true impact across New York State as water quality testing goes on further. New challenges associated with MCLs and changes to public health law also don't necessarily include aspects of time when looking at complying with the regulations. So there are other things associated with the compliance aspect rather than just demonstrating water quality. It takes time to design systems, to go through the regulatory review process, to acquire land and employ new water treatment methodologies. In addition to new MCLs associated with the state public health law, water systems are faced with complying with the the lead and copper rule revisions, which were published in the Federal Register in January of this past year. The effective dates of these regulations and requirements have been delayed by the Biden administration pending a review. However, the changes are significant. They include a new lead trigger level at 10 parts per billion, which requires additional planning for CCT and various things. New sample site selection requirements, new requirements for corrosion control treatment, and water quality parameter requirements. The cost for the compliance with the lead and copper rule revisions is going to be significant and high. All of these have an impact in terms of rates that water systems charge for their services to their customers. We can't lose sight of the fact that who pays for these bills is the customers. So we need to make sure that we're employing and looking at creative avenues for assisting customers impacted by economic hardship, and also a number of additional new ways to look at how water systems are able to charge for their services. Water suppliers cannot function or exist without revenue for services from customers and ratepayers to fund operations and maintenance of the systems in our infrastructure. This all plays a part in how we look at and account for the value of water. In the US, drinking water suppliers deliver on public health, sanitation, fire suppression, and economic development. It's worth remembering that for about a penny per gallon, much less than the cost, water costs about a penny a gallon, which is much less than the cost in other developed nations. And lastly, a little bit of food for thought. The graph that you see up here represents a study that One Water Supply did looking at how their fees charged to their customers compared to the deliveries of other utilities such as electricity, cell phone service, cable TV, so on and so forth for customers in that particular water system. And the value of water is still on the low end as in terms of how we compare to other utilities. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Adrian.
Adrian, you're on mute.
That's why I have excellent staff to tell me those things. Thank you, Ken. And I just want to, say that I agree. And the challenge, this is one of the challenges, I think, in takeaways, today's forum, is that we all want and need clean water. Like everyone deserves clean water, but it's not free. So how to balance the necessity of clean water without getting it to be too expensive that people struggle to pay for clean water. So we need to achieve both in a civilized society. And the challenge of filtering our water is a real one, a critical one. And even though we have new and advanced technologies, they cost money, they take expertise, and they take to develop and to install. And then for instance, with 1,4-dioxane, they also have to be tweaked. So this is a science, and it is a process that we need to go through, but also be cognizant of. Our last speaker today, Matthew Millay, Matthew's representing the great group of people who treat our water and cause it to be dispersed and end up in our homes. Matthew, what are the challenges associated with not end up in our homes? I'm sorry, end up being
In our waterways.
in our waterways.
Recycled into our waterways.
Sometimes
I knew
it
what you
goes
meant.
around. But Matthew, what are the challenges with wastewater treatment?
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian, for inviting us to speak again. And thank you for your tireless advocacy and organization. Jessica, thank you for your work with the Clean Water Jobs Coalition, which has also been just a fantastic effort. Ken did a great job on his presentation and saved me from having to repeat many of the items that were in his excellent PowerPoint. Much like the drinking water world, the clean water world faces the significant asset challenges of having an ancient infrastructure that requires 30 to 40 to probably more likely $50 billion of investment in the near term. But at the same time, to our members of the legislature that are on and their staffs, we are deeply, deeply appreciative of the efforts that you have undertaken, most importantly in the last 5 years, to provide upwards of $3 billion and now approaching $5 billion with the governor's proposal in his current executive budget to continue to increase the funding. And I know he does that because he knows he has partners in the legislature that will support that and carry it forward. And it's a win for everybody. And Adrian is right when she said at the outset that this is an issue that is not political. It is Republicans and Democrats absolutely working together because they recognize, as Ken said, the value of water and the importance of delivering clean water to our households and also making sure it's treated to the highest levels possible at our treatment facilities. What I would add to the comments that you've heard already, which were fantastic and important, are that our frontline workers have been doing a tremendous job in the drinking water space as well as the clean water space, working their 24/7 shifts throughout the COVID crisis. They are not prioritized on vaccination lists yet. We have asked both the leaders in the Senate and the Assembly, as well as the governor's office, to certainly move them up the list as much as they can. And we also recognize there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of groups looking for priority placement with vaccinations. We certainly want our wastewater and drinking water operators to be recognized as frontline workers. And the sooner they're vaccinated, the more confidence we can have that those services will continue to be delivered without interruption, as they have done now. And they did a tremendous job, and we're thankful to all of them. At the same time, we are hopeful that the federal government is coming around to mirror and partner with the state more so than we've seen in the past and the most recent past. For those of you that haven't seen the news yet, Radhika Fox was appointed by President Biden to serve as the highest ranking official in the EPA for water. She is a tremendous partner to all of us. She has served as the head of the U.S. Water Alliance, and I worked with her when she worked at the San Francisco Public Utilities Office, and she's a champion of what I think we're all focused on is the sentiment of one water. And it's not drinking water competing against clean water, competing against rural water, competing against storm water. One water it's all the one resource that we're looking to have protected throughout its entire life cycle, through the environment, through households. And we need to be able to prioritize those investments. The money that we have is historic, but it is still far less than what is needed. And we need to work together to prioritize those investments to the most acute and important issues. Communities need to know that if they're working on drinking water treatment plant upgrades to manage the new MCLs for emerging contaminants, that they're not also going to get violated and have massive expenses for clean water upgrades at the exact same moment. Again, creating rate pressure on a community that likely can't afford both projects at the same time. In addition, you add stormwater regulations onto that, and it puts a lot of pressure on municipal officials and then ratepayers to do it all at once. And I know Radhika is very sensitive to that, and we'll have a partner at EPA to work with us on investing these dollars wisely, to invest them in the highest and most important use first. And I think the laterals is an important policy discussion, and I know Ken raised that in his PowerPoint, but that was one of those conundrums where you scratch your head and you say, well, why do we have so many lead laterals? And the issue was they're privately owned. They're part of the home. They're not part of the utility system. So they stay put for a long, long time. And now, because of the health issues associated with them, government is saying enough, we have to get rid of them. And now it becomes a community challenge to address them. But it's yet another issue on the table for utility operators to manage. So also what we saw, and I'll be brief because I know we've got a schedule here, Adrian, but an important point I think to make on the rate issues is we saw Congress approve rate assistance for water and wastewater utilities for the first time in the December COVID relief package. And what I think has happened there is historic also, because a year ago, I was talking to the Buffalo Sewer Authority about their efforts to provide ratepayer assistance, and they could not marry their system to the same system that they use for heating assistance. There was just a bureaucratic wall saying, well, no, that's our data, you can't have it. Now, because of COVID, now because of the crisis that's before us on trying to help disadvantaged communities on all levels, heating, water, rent, mortgages, we've had a major breakthrough where I think because of that congressional action, the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance is now working with our utilities to marry those systems together, which just makes a lot of sense. Our utilities can work with the same clientele and not have to create a new bureaucratic process, not have to create a new application process, and hopefully provide rate assistance to those that need it the most. While at the same time, we're seeing rate increases that have to occur because they are making important upgrades into their systems. So those were the key points that I wanted to stress today, in addition to what we heard from Jessica and Ken and from you, Adrian, is to recognize the importance of the workforce in both of these sectors, clean water and drinking water, as well as the rate pressures that will continue to be part of the dialogue as we go forward. And again, my final thought is to, again, thank our legislators for their continued support. And again, this funding is historic. New York State has appropriated more money in the last 5 years for clean water than the Congress has for the United States of America. So that's something to be very proud of.
And that is actually quite an ending statement.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is this: investing in clean water is just a smart investment, even in difficult and challenging economic times. We're delighted the governor proposed in his budget to keep in the next $500 million allocation for water infrastructure. We're asking the Assembly to also strongly support that. We need to not only allocate the funds, we need to get them out the door in the form of grants to the water treatment operators, so that the archaic pipes that Jessica referenced can be updated and can be changed out. So we really appreciate everyone coming. I think you can see we have lots of environmentalists who have also joined us. So thank you to our colleagues in the environmental community. We have environmentalists who work to protect the water. Then we have the water suppliers who work to filter the water if it's contaminated. And then we have treatment operators that work to filter and manage the water before it gets discharged into bays and oceans and rivers. So we're all on the same team. Again, oh, wait, one question came in. I was going to say there's no questions. Oh, no, this is just a thank you. Okay. So everyone, we want to thank you for joining. We know you have busy schedules in Albany. Please remember, water, clean water is a unifier. It's a smart investment. And it's something we can tell you as a grassroots group, your constituents want and support. Joining us, we appreciate all your work.